boys and girls. We're going to read a book called Flying Solo. And the author is Christy Steffes, and the illustrator is Rachel Smith. Ellie, are you going to take all night to pack your suitcase? Ellie's younger brother John asked. Hold your horses, said Ellie. I'm looking for my swimsuit. Here's your swimsuit, called Mom, as she and Dad entered Ellie's bedroom. They helped Ellie finish packing and double-checked to make sure she didn't forget anything. Well, Ellie, you're all packed, Mom said. And just in time for bed, said Dad. John, say good night to your sister and Scruffy, and skedaddle back to your room for bed. Night-night, sweet dreams, and don't let the bed bugs bite, giggled John as he ran out of the room. Mom and Dad tucked Ellie into bed and turned off the light and left Ellie in her familiar, sleepy darkness. Ellie closed her eyes and imagined playing on the beach at Jen's house. She pictured sandcastles, seashells, and bright sun in the big blue sky, and if she closed her eyes real tight, she could feel the sand between her toes and hear the waves crashing along the shore. Soon she drifted off into a deep, deep sleep. The next morning, the very sleepy-eyed Ellie was awakened by Scruffy, who had jumped on top of Ellie and was licking her face until she sat straight up in bed. Oh, Scruffy, she shouted with joy, I'm flying to San Diego today. Ellie leaped out of bed and got dressed and ran downstairs for breakfast. John was already sitting at the kitchen table eating his favorite breakfast, a stack of blueberry pancakes smothered in syrup. She took a drink of juice and looked at Ellie and asked, Are you afraid to fly all by yourself? Suddenly, Ellie got butterflies in her stomach. She hadn't thought about flying all by herself. All of her thoughts were about playing on the beach and with her Aunt Jen and how much fun it was going to be. Ellie turned to her dad and asked, Is flying solo scary? Oh, no, sweetheart. You know your mother and I fly all the time. It's very safe. And there might be other kids flying solo. The flight attendants and the pilot will take good care of you. After breakfast, Ellie kissed her mom and John Scruffy goodbye. Dad was taking her to the airport. He put her suitcase in the trunk so that when they arrived at the airport, unloading would be easy as 1, 2, 3. When they were close to the airport, there were lots of cars. Some drivers were in a hurry. They honked their horns. Other cars just sat along the curb side and waited. Big jets and little jets were taking off and landing. It was a noisy place. After they parked the car and walked inside the airport, Ellie's dad said, It's our lucky day. It's just a short line. This is where we check your suitcase and get your boarding pass. As they approached the ticket counter, Ellie's dad handed the agent her ticket. Are you traveling to San Diego all by yourself? Asked the ticket agent. Yes, I'm 6 years old and I'm flying solo, Ellie said with a great big smile. You're going to have a great flight, responded the ticket agent. Now that we've checked your luggage and you have your boarding pass, you need to walk through security and proceed to gate B9, or as the pilots would say, Bravo Niner, Roger. At security, Ellie and her dad practically had to get undressed again. When Ellie realized she had to take off her belt and shoes, she wondered why she couldn't have just worn her slippers and PJs. She packed her backpack and the rest of her belongings on the conveyor belt and walked through the metal detector. Once they walked through the detector without beeping, Ellie's dad gathered her belongings and together they walked to B9. There's my plane, shouted Ellie as they approached the gate area. And there it was indeed, a shiny new 737, blue and red jet. There were a lot of people waiting to go to San Diego. The gate agent announced that it was time to board the plane. "Don't worry, Dad. Flying solo isn't so scary," and she said, and kissed him goodbye. The gate agent walked Ellie down the jetway to board the plane. The flight attendant greeted her with a smile and said, "Welcome aboard. Follow me to the flight deck to meet the pilots, and then we'll find your seat." "This is Captain Artie and First Officer Ava, otherwise known as Ava the Aviator," said the flight attendant. They are both excellent pilots. They are going to make sure that you have a very safe flight to San Diego. The flight deck was very small and just 2 seats and lots of buttons and knobs. Captain Artie invited Ellie to sit in the captain's seat. He showed her how they taxied to the runway using their feet to steer the plane. And when it's time to take off, they push the throttle all the way forward and pull up on the yoke. The flight attendant told Ellie it was time to take a seat. "May I sit next to the window?" asked Ellie. "Of course," replied the flight attendant. "I'll sit you next to the window along with 2 other children who are flying solo. This is Olivia. She is 8 years old. She flies with us once a month. Her parents are divorced. Half the time she lives in Chicago with her father, and the rest of the time she lives in San Diego with her mother. Olivia is a frequent flyer. She has probably earned enough miles to fly around the world 3 times. And this is Charlie. He's 10 years old, and this is his 2nd time flying solo. He is traveling to San Diego to surf camp. He's a rad surfer." "All right now," said the flight attendant. "Everyone stow their backpacks underneath the seat and buckle up, and we'll be on our way." Click, click, click. 3 safety belts were clicked into place, and they were ready for a smooth flight. Ellie watched out the window. The ramp agents were loading the luggage into the belly of the plane. Once all the bags were loaded, all the passengers found a seat. The tug pushed them away from the gate. As the plane taxied out to the runway, the flight attendants instructed passengers on what to do in the event of an emergency. Their job is to make sure that everyone on the plane has a safe and comfortable flight. Captain Artie announced, "Flight attendants, take your seat. We've been cleared for takeoff." The plane began rolling down the runway faster and faster. The ground was slipping away. Soon they were soaring in the air. "Just sit back and relax," said Olivia. "Flying is fun. Look out your window and watch the big city get smaller and smaller." Ellie looked out the window. She could see her neighborhood. The higher they flew, the smaller the city became. The tall skyscrapers looked like marshmallows. The people looked like tiny ants, and the cars looked like John's toy cars. As the plane climbed higher and higher, a layer of clouds appeared and covered the entire city. Charlie said, "Look at the clouds. They look like giant cotton balls. That cloud over there looks like me surfing a gigantic wave." Olivia looked into the clouds and pictured herself flying to Paris with her frequent flyer tickets. And Ellie imagined John and Scruffy playing ball in the clouds. "My ears feel funny," said Ellie as she tugged on her earlobes. "Your ears just need to pop," said Charlie. "Chew your gum. It will help." "Yawning makes your ears pop too," added Olivia. Ellie's ears finally popped, and she felt much better. Up in the air, the flight attendants passed out peanuts and drinks. After the service, Ellie's new friends kept busy reading and playing games. Ellie continued to look out the window. She couldn't take her eyes off the view. The ride got a little bumpy. The flight attendant came by and told them not to worry about the bumps. They were flying over the Rocky Mountains, and those big mountains like to rock the passengers. Ellie laid her head against the window and looked down on the enormous snow-capped mountains. Once they flew over the mountains, it was back to smooth flying. The view was magnificent. A few hours passed, and finally Captain Artie announced that they were approaching San Diego. They heard the landing gear drop. Ellie looked over at the great big blue ocean. It was filled with sailboats, navy ships, cruise ships, and tiny tugs. The skyscrapers were standing tall along the ocean. The ants grew into people, and the toy cars were big again. The 3 children flying solo were grinning from ear to ear. Ellie was so excited to see her Aunt Jen. Charlie couldn't wait to go surfing, and Olivia missed her mom. The wheels touched down, and the plane came to a low taxi. It was a great flight. Ellie felt proud of herself for being brave and flying solo. They safely arrived at the gate. The flight attendant escorted Ellie, Charlie, and Olivia off the plane to meet their loved ones. Ellie's Aunt Jen was waiting behind a big welcome sign and a bunch of balloons. Charlie's surf counselor was there to greet him, and Olivia's mom was waiting for her. Aunt Jen hugged and kissed Ellie and then asked, "How was your flight?" "It was great," shouted Ellie. Ellie liked everything about flying. She liked the takeoff and landing. She liked looking out her window. But most of all, she liked meeting the flight crew and making new friends. Ellie waved goodbye to Olivia and Charlie, then walked with Aunt Jen to the baggage claim and picked up her suitcase. "Now that you have your luggage, let's go to the beach," exclaimed Aunt Jen. "That's a great idea," replied Ellie. Ellie had a blast at the beach with Aunt Jen, building sandcastles and finding seashells. She loved the hot sun on her skin. After a while, they took a break, and Ellie lay down on the beach towel and closed her eyes. She could feel the sand between her toes, and she listened to the waves crashing along the shore. Soon she drifted off into a deep, deep sleep. She could hardly wait to fly solo again. And so here is a map of the United States, and the planes go from here to there if you're going a long way. And this is tips for parents when kids are flying solo. So get there early, make a new friend, maybe the other children that are flying solo. Pack a healthy lunch, lots of snacks, the healthy snacks. You might need a sweatshirt or a light jacket and so you can be in layers. And don't forget a favorite game or toy. All right, my friends, I hope you enjoyed flying solo.